What if I told you that the United States and Russia, two nuclear-armed giants, are closer to open conflict right now than at any time since the Cold War? That beneath the headlines, military drills, and diplomatic posturing, a silent clock is ticking and it's louder than ever. This isn't just another political standoff. This is a multi-layered, high-stakes geopolitical collision. And the real reason behind it goes far deeper than most people realize. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you fact-based global news and analysis clear, neutral, and never sensationalized. Let's unpack what's really going on between the US and Russia and why the threat of war, even if unintended, is dangerously real. To understand today's tension, we need to start with the most recent flashpoints, but also recognize how far back the roots go. Right now, the world's attention is locked on Eastern Europe. Ukraine remains the front line, but what's happening there is just the surface. Behind it is a much larger power struggle, one that now includes nuclear deployments, military escalations, cyber warfare, economic warfare, and shifting global alliances. Let's start with the facts. In the last 12 months, US and NATO forces have conducted over 200 joint military drills across Eastern Europe and the Arctic. These include live-fire exercises, simulated airstrikes, and troop rotations just miles from Russian borders. At the same time, Russia has increased its own military activity, sending nuclear-capable bombers near NATO airspace, deploying submarines near US coasts, and expanding its military footprint in the Arctic, Kaliningrad, and even the Pacific. In response, the US has quietly moved more B-52 bombers into Europe, upgraded missile defenses in Poland and Romania, and accelerated weapons deliveries to Ukraine, some of which include long-range systems that can reach deep into Russian territory. All of this is happening under the surface of public awareness. But the military establishments on both sides are watching every move. And here's where it gets dangerous. Both countries are now operating in what analysts call a fog of escalation. This means that neither side fully knows what the other will do next, but both are preparing for the worst. So how did we get here? Let's rewind. Many trace the beginning of this current phase to 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea and destabilized eastern Ukraine. That was a turning point. The West, led by the United States, responded with sanctions, NATO troop buildups, and an effort to isolate Russia diplomatically. Russia, in turn, began to deepen its alliances with China, Iran, North Korea, and other non-Western powers. It started shifting away from the dollar-based financial system, investing heavily in cyber capabilities, and rearming its military with an emphasis on strategic weapons. Putin openly declared the collapse of the Soviet Union a catastrophe and made it clear he wants to restore Russian influence over its near abroad. Meanwhile, the United States underwent its own political transformation. With increasing polarization at home and military overextension abroad, U.S. strategy shifted under successive administrations, from Obama's pivot to Asia, to Trump's transactional approach with Russia, to Biden's renewed focus on NATO and democratic alliances. Through it all, the U.S. continued to expand its influence in Eastern Europe, something Russia sees as a direct threat. But the current danger isn't just about geography or politics, it's about doctrine. Russia's military doctrine explicitly allows for the use of tactical nuclear weapons in a conventional war if the state's survival is at stake. And in recent months, Kremlin officials, including former President Dmitry Medvedev, have openly warned that nuclear strikes on the West are not off the table. At the same time, the United States has maintained a policy of strategic ambiguity, refusing to rule out any option in response to Russian aggression. The result, both sides are engaging in brinkmanship, testing red lines, probing defenses, and sending signals that could easily be misread. Now add artificial intelligence, autonomous drones, and cyber attacks into the mix. The battlefield is no longer just land, sea, and air. It's digital, decentralized, and faster than ever. A single cyber attack on a nuclear warning system or a misinterpreted satellite image could trigger a chain reaction of events no one intended. Let's talk about the human cost. In Ukraine alone, tens of thousands of civilians have died. Cities have been reduced to rubble, millions have been displaced. But this war has ripple effects far beyond Europe. Global energy prices have spiked, grain exports have been disrupted. Developing nations are facing inflation, hunger, and political instability, all partly fueled by this geopolitical standoff. Meanwhile, the American and Russian publics are being prepared, mentally and politically, for confrontation. Russian state media routinely depicts the West as aggressive and untrustworthy. In the US, polls show growing bipartisan support for a tough stance against Moscow. The risk? War becomes normalized in the public imagination, making it easier to slip into the real thing. There's also the question of alliances. The US is not alone. It has NATO, Japan, South Korea, and increasingly India. Russia, though more isolated, has strategic partnerships with China, Iran, North Korea, and the BRICS bloc. If a direct conflict were to erupt, even a limited one, the risk of drawing in other powers is dangerously high. So what would war actually look like? Military experts say it wouldn't start with tanks rolling into Poland or missiles flying over the Atlantic. It would likely begin in the gray zones: cyber attacks on infrastructure, electronic warfare, targeted sabotage, and proxy battles in third-party countries. But from there, escalation could be rapid, especially if casualties mount or critical assets are hit. And the nuclear question looms over it all. Even a limited exchange would be catastrophic: millions dead, global fallout, economic collapse. That's why both sides insist they want to avoid war. But their actions: more troops, more weapons, more threats tell a different story. What's the solution? Diplomacy is struggling. Traditional arms control agreements like START and INF have either expired or been abandoned. Channels of communication are thinner than ever. Mutual distrust runs deep. Some experts call for a modern-day Helsinki-style summit to reset boundaries and prevent accidents. Others argue deterrence is the only language Moscow understands. But here's the hard truth: unless both sides step back, admit the risk, and engage in serious dialogue, the path we're on leads closer to confrontation, not further from it. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think this is just Cold War-style posturing, or are we sleepwalking into a real conflict? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next report. We're committed to bringing you clear, fact-based global news, no drama, no bias, just the truth. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.